St. Clair County Jail. Okay, now, did there come a time in your relationship with Mr. Gatling and Mr. Suarez when the conversation turned to narcotics? Yes. When was that time? Mid-2012. How did that convo begin? Well, the initiation was Fidel Suarez. He called and made some conversation about he needed to get rid of some type of pills, and did I know somebody that wanted to buy them? I was in a call with Keith Cromer at the time on a speaker in my car, and Keith said, tell him yes. And shortly thereafter, I received a call from an agent in California, and that's how it started off transpiring from Fidel. They don't go into that, but Fidel Suarez he had beaten one case, he might have beaten two, or he had one and beat the other. Fidel Suarez owned a trucking company out of California and was using it to move narcotics. Okay, was there ever a time when you were asked to give a phone number to Fidel at any point? Yes. A couple times, Fidel called and asked for Cuff's number. Did he say who? He said, Buddy told me to get Cuff's phone number, and I gave him Cuff's phone number. Who is Buddy, for the record? Answer, I'm assuming Demetrius Flannery. So you've known him by that name? Correct? Well, when he says Buddy, as he calls, yes, sir. So Demetrius is Buddy. Buddy? So apparently Fidel somehow had talked to Meech, and Meech said, get someone's number from Tammy so you guys can do something. And did you do that? Yes, I did. Now, during a period of time you just indicated Mr. Cromer is with you, Mr. Cromer, did he overhear any of the conversations you had with either Mr. Gatling or Mr. Suarez at that time? Yes, with Mr. Suarez. July 2012, did you have a convo with Mr. Suarez related to a trip he may take? Fidel asked me to come to St. Louis because he was going. Well, that's where Cuffy was at. Did he tell you why he wanted you in St. Louis? No, he didn't. And did he contact you later on? Yes, he did. He contacted me when he was in St. Louis, stating that he had a truck up there, and that, from my understanding, if I recollect, he didn't have the phone number, and he had this truck. So Fidel is in St. Louis. His driver has bought a truck for this person that told her to give Cuff his phone number per Buddy, which is Big Meech. And that would be August 5th of 2012. So when I received that call, it was on a Sunday. I was at home cooking spaghetti. So when did you receive the phone call from Fidel Suarez from St. Louis? When I received that call, it was on a Sunday. I was at home cooking spaghetti, and Keith Cromer was at my house. How lovely. So they're having Sunday dinner, her and a DEA agent, while a semi-truck full of yayo bricks is sitting somewhere in St. Louis with no one to pick them up. Imagine that. Demetrius Flannery was somewhere in a prison, probably telling BMF stories. Fidel Suarez's work is sitting in St. Louis, and DEA agent Cromer and Miss Tammy were booed up cooking pescetti on a Sunday. And I can't remember honestly if it was heroin or coke. And I said, what's going on? And he was all upset, saying, I got an effing truck up here, and this dude is playing games. And he was using a lot of profanity. And he said, see if you can get in contact with him. I had an alternate number for Cuff. So Cuff only called you to say hi, but you had multiple numbers for him. And I reached out to Cuff and asked him, and he said he hasn't tried to call me. And I said he's calling you at this number. And then that was the wrong number. Fidel had Cuff's old number, and guys switched numbers. She had the current and active number. She passed it on to Suarez. Subsequently, they contacted each other. That's correct. That Sunday, that's correct. Did Mr. Cromer, Agent Cromer, was he present during these conversations? Yes, he was. Was he listening in on these conversations? Yes, he was. And at the time he was listening in, he could hear what both parties were saying? Yes, I had him on a speakerphone. Am I on a speakerphone? Have you ever been purchasing a truckload of kilograms and thought, is that echo on my speakerphone? Keith Cromer reached out to St. Louis DEA and I got on the phone to speak to an agent. Okay, but the substance of your conversations regarding the dope deal and truck, did you relay that to St. Louis DEA? Yes, I did, to the agents involved. To the agent I spoke on the phone, and Mr. Cromer had already contacted them. That is correct. And would it be fair to say that you had 2, 3, 5? How many conversations with St. Louis agents did you have about this August 5th conversation? Probably at a total of 3. Blah, blah, blah. And when you talked to the agents and Mr. Cromer, did you indicate to them at any point you had to obtain a photograph of Mr. Suarez? Yes. Okay, how did that happen? You indicated earlier it was a result of exchanging Facebook. Oh, no, the picture came from Fidel sending me the picture to my phone, a picture of him so I could put it in my contact list. Well, how convenient. So did you ask him for a picture? I asked him for a picture. Government exhibit, and they present a picture. I wish I had a picture of Fidel Suarez. Did you ever meet Mr. Suarez in person? No, I never met him. How about Mr. Gatling? Had you met Mr. Gatling? I had not met Mr. Gatling at that time. Did there come a time when you did meet Mr. Gatling? Yes. He called and said he was coming to Atlanta and he wanted to take me to dinner. Okay, so what happened with the truck? I had a conversation with Fidel Suarez. He called upset, furious. This was after the fact of the 5th. He was mad because he said the Cuff stiffed him and didn't pay all the money. So she facilitated them being in contact. Cuff got the truck, according to this. He didn't pay him all the money for the drugs. I don't remember if it was heroin or cocaine. I honestly don't remember. She said that several times. Maybe she knows that the penalties for H are worse than C. But he didn't pay him all the money for the blacks. So for someone that's just passing phone numbers, she knows the business. I mean, well, she's in the mix. Blah, blah, blah. To the Keith Cromer. Okay, let's go to November of 2012. Did there come a point when you were working with Mr. Cromer where it was decided you would no longer talk to Dion Gatling? That is correct. And when you told him that, what did he do? He said, well, that's fine. I'll let him talk too. And he says a name, but they changed it to CS2, which is another woman. And that was it. So if they're going to move Dion Gatling over to another CS who's a woman, is that another? Why would Dion talk to a random woman? I'll let him talk. That's Cromer. She's talking to Cromer. I'll let him talk to CS2. So Cromer is somehow involved in, boy, trying to judge what's going on from the verb tenses. And when you told Cromer that, what did he do? Then he said, well, that's fine. I'll let him talk to CS2. Why would Cromer be controlling who Dion Gatling is talking to? Dion Gatling would talk to people that either Meech, Fidel Suarez, or Tammy told him to talk to, right? So was Cromer at this point controlling CS2, this other woman? And Gatling would only listen to some other person if either Fidel Suarez or Meech knew her, right? Okay. CS2, is that fair to say? From my understanding, that's CS2. Let's refer to her as CS2 from now on. So her name was in the record. I'm not saying it. They struck it and made it CS2. Want to keep her out of it also. I'd asked the record be stricken of the name. The court will refer to her as CS2. So CS2 comes in the mix in November of 2012. Okay. And how did it go? What did you do? What did CS2 do and who showed up? Well, Dion asked me, did I know anybody? Prior to the meeting, he asked me if I knew anybody he could get work from. Basically, they could front him some work, some drug transaction. And I said, well, I don't really know anybody, but I'll think about it and let you know. Okay, why would a woman okay, so Cuffy Gatling, and this is I don't know anything about Mr. Gatling other than court stuff. I did do a brief interview with him. He's been convicted prior to this. Cuffy's a real guy from a real place, from St. Louis. Why would he be asking Tammy, did she know someone who could give him some work? Just because she's around? I'm around. I know a lot of people in this world. Nobody calls me and says, hey, Al, do you know someone that could, give me 100 bricks on consignment? That's not what I do. Why would you ask me that? So why would he ask her that? Um, I told him everybody was locked up, I think the wording that I used. And then Keith said, tell him you know a lady. And that's what I said, which was CS2. Okay, so that's not Meech's person. That's a woman that Keith Cromer had. So these women are being used as these big drug kingpins proxies. So at that point in time, you were out of the investigation with Mr. Gatling. So Dion supposedly, Mr. Gatling asked for some work on credit after stiffing Fidel Suarez. And she says, yeah, I'll hook you up with this other girl. I wonder is that, well, let me not put people's names out there. So at that point in time, you're out of an investigation with respect to Mr. Gatling. Other than us meeting for dinner, that's fair to say. They went to the Varsity in Atlanta. That night, they went to the only Varsity I know is in the downtown ATL. That's where King Von and Dirk caught their case. Do you see Mr. Gatling in the courtroom today? Oh, Mr. Gatling was there. So this was a real court hearing. Mr. Dion Cuffy Gatling was there. There came a time when Mr. Gatling was indicted. Did you become aware of that? Yes. And okay, and do you remember exactly when that was? April and May of 2014. Now, during this time you were working, what things were you doing as a cooperator and an informant? They would tell me to go and pick up money or go pick up drugs at a certain location. Then I would show up and I would say, okay, we want you to pick up. One example was $270,000, and we're going to bring them back to drugs. So she would pose. She would say, I'm with the people who got to work. I'm going to get the $270,000 and bring back the drugs. Most cases, I always meet with all the agents. Every time I'd go, I'd end up not going to pick up the drugs or entering money. Strange. At any rate, you were assigned certain things to do. Among them were phone calls. Yes, sir. You were asked to make phone calls. Yes, sir. Mr. Cromer, did he give you a phone number and ask you to give it to another agent? He was at my house one morning on his way to work for a meeting. He went to meetings once a week, and he said, hey, take this number. I don't remember. And he said, give them this information. For what? I said. He said, don't ask me any questions. Don't worry about it. Just do this for me. And this information related to an individual by the name of Bootsy from Decatur, Georgia. Who is Bootsy from Decatur, Georgia? ATL, shouty. Get on the case. Who's Bootsy from Decatur, Georgia? They were on your trail, buddy. Or maybe you're in federal prison. I don't know. All jokes aside. Best of luck to Bootsy. Now, while you were talking with the agents in St. Louis about Mr. Gatling and Mr. Suarez, did Mr. Cromer give you any numbers or tell you to give these numbers to any of the agents? Bootsy, that's the only time this ever happened. Other than CS2 was to give me numbers, which had nothing to do with Cuff. So now she's working with CF2. She was to provide me with numbers for a gentleman named Diego, but this had nothing to do with Dion Gatling. So these two women they're in deep. They're working the Hispanics, to use the DEA's term. Now, Tammy Cowens, in some circles, was known as the white girl. She appears to be a light-skinned African-American. She could pass for Hispanic. I don't know what her ethnic background is. She's like my father. She can pass for anything. Okay, now Tammy, there's a lot. People, there's 100 and some pages. Shout out to my guy that sent me this. Though this has been available, but oh wow. Okay, I'm not gonna give it all to you here. Okay. Okay. Oh. So here's the time when she starts talking about being afraid. Okay, this is when she gets paid. So she gets an $80,000 check from Agent Cromer. She calls Jack Harvey, the original guy she knew who worked the DMF case and was retired, and says, I got an $80,000 check and I don't know why. They said it's for everything you're doing. As far as you knew, you didn't know what it's for. She got an $80,000 check, didn't know what it's for. She called Jack Harvey and said, it's too much. Now the agent, who does that? Now the agents had been paying you periodically on a monthly basis. That's just for me making the phone calls and going back and forth with the Hispanics. Was there any agreement, you or anyone else, about your rent? You know, that's a rule for some of these African-American street guys in some of these cities. You can tell when the Mexicans out of town, it's cool. Be careful out there for any of my Hispanic brethren watching. I've heard those conversations. So they were paying her rent. So she got $55,000 from Terry White. And she got some more money from someone else. We're going to get into that part in a minute. She got, so they're paying her rent, $2,500. There's a lot. I'm trying to sift through it for you here. Okay, during this period of time, you received some money for the Terry White case. It was $55,000. Sound about right? Yeah, that sounds about right. And that was for your assistance at Jack Harvey in the Terry White case. Well, that, and I also contributed to my jewelry that was seized in Terry White's house during the time they seized it. So she had some jewelry that was worth $34,000. Let her tell it. That she didn't get back. It was forfeited. So after Jack said, well, I can say anything, I said, I don't want you to because I don't trust anybody within the government. He said, no, you can trust this person. I'm going to make a few phone calls. Then I received a call to meet Keith Cromer's boss at Atlanta Bread Company. So they went to a restaurant. She met this agent. She had been having an affair with his boss. Subsequently, you have been interviewed on a number of occasions. A number. Without going into any details, you had a number. So she said, this is just a document that has made it to surfaced into the public. There's many other documents. Has anyone bribed you or asked you not to testify or give information about Mr. Cromer of any information he had? Now, important to remember, there's multiple criminal things going on here. The DEA's interest is probably less in, it doesn't seem to be in Mr. Flannery at this point. He's doing his time. They're trying to get Gatling, but they're trying to see how much malfeasance is going on in their office. It sounds like to me, remember Tammy said she didn't actually meet any Hispanics, maybe a little phone convo. Are these agents buying pussy with DEA, right? So Tammy appears in the DEA offices and helps them work. Terry Bernard White, Keith Cromer, is interested in procuring her vajayjay. He makes payments from you and I, the U.S. taxpayer, to her. She doesn't know what it's for. Well, you laid with him 6 nights a week. He was married. I mean, I don't know what women are into, but Keith Cromer was 60, which doesn't mean a woman can't like him, but he's cheating on his wife. He's a DEA agent. He's not a creative guy. I mean, women like a man, attractive, interesting, solid, emotional connection. Well, he lies to his wife. He's a boring federal agent. Couldn't be the physical part. Maybe the 80 was for the P. Pushing P, indeed. Okay, so, boy, there's a lot. This is 200 and some pages. In March of 2015, did you have occasion to go online and find any pleadings by the defense in this case? So, Mr. Gatling in 2015, this stuff came out in 2015. The streets knew about this. When I first was, well, many moons ago, shout out to my guy who was an unindicted co-conspirator with some Detroit people that keep up with the other Detroit people, and they said something about some pills and Meech, and this. Remember, the first call was about some pills. So I was hearing about this years ago, but I wasn't just going to jump out there because the industry of talking about BMF has made a lot of people a lot of money, including me. Boop, bop, de bop. Boy, there's all type of stuff. Let's jump down. What are my notes here? 150. Let's just go to 150. I'm not going to give it all to you. Okay. Okay, so they've recessed the court and come back. Now another attorney is talking to her. You are CS1 in this document, correct? That is correct. Okay. And as a part of your earlier testimony, you clarified that despite what's in this document, Mr. Flannery was never involved in trying to coordinate any drug deals between Mr. Suarez and Mr. Gatling. Is that correct? That is correct. Now, also as a part of this document, there's some discussions of you potentially getting a finder's fee, or there being a discussion between you and Mr. Suarez about a finder's fee for coordinating deals for cocaine. Is that accurate? That is accurate. I told them that they can give me some money so I can make sure Meech's books as commissary stays good. You know, a finder's fee. So your intent was for them to conduct drug deals so they could give you money so you could place it on Mr. Flannery's books. That is what I was told to say. That is correct. That's what you were told to say by Keith. Okay, so Mr. Cromer told you to say that. That's basically correct. Now, also, there's some references in here to DEA agents in Atlanta, DEA Atlanta. Is it fair to say the only person you're really directing, talking about Keith Cromer? Oh my God, this is overwhelming. I believe you testified the additional things you were supposed to do were make phone calls and collect money and drugs you're dealing with, I guess, Hispanics. He said Hispanics? That's what he said. And the purpose of this was so they would be deported and you would never have to testify. It never panned out. Okay, where am I? Here, 150, 188. Let's go to 188. I went through this real fast earlier and made some notes. So specifically in paragraph 8, okay, so now there's some other documents and reports that we can't see that they're referencing and asking questions about, where she makes some statements which she now denies. Well, she said some things and now she's saying they're not true. So specifically in paragraph 8, it refers to a statement under section A that says CS1 told investigators that Demetrius Flannery coordinated drug distribution arrangements between the two, referring to Suarez and Gatling. Is that statement true? No, but she made it. There's a statement in paragraph B. CS1, Demetrius Flannery arranged for Suarez to deliver multiple kilogram quantities of cocaine to Gatling in St. Louis through CS1. That's not true. So the statements in paragraph 8 are false. Correct. That is not true. It goes on then to describe the activities of the conspiratorial members, starting number 1 with Demetrius Flannery. Oh, now she's trying to, what page are you on? Oh, she's trying to confuse it. What's the definition of conspiratorial? Come on now, sis. Come on, sis. Yeah, maybe just continuing on the top of the page. Flannery was responsible for the acquisition of cocaine. Did you have any information about Flannery being involved in conspiracy with these two individuals? Okay, now this gets a little confusing. It's about... August 2012, confidential informant hereinafter described as CS1 contacted the DEA to provide information on an active drug distribution conspiracy in which Dion Gatling, Fidel Suarez, and Demetrius Flannery are members. This is okay. Here's the key thing. There was in a report, it says she called the DEA to talk about this 3-person conspiracy. She says no. Keith was at my home. We were having spaghetti Sunday dinner. Keith overheard these conversations and called the St. Louis DEA. So you're messing with a DEA agent to the point he's at your home on Sunday. You doing some stuff on the phone with drug trafficking, and you let him overhear. Women, listen. I don't like this type of stuff, but many people talk on the phone while their significant others right there about affairs and all type of stuff. You mean you couldn't keep a drug transaction covered up? He overheard it. Come on now. I never contacted DEA and said Demetrius and Cuffy Fidel. So it's not true you contacted the DEA to provide information on an active drug distribution conspiracy? So it goes back to saying that's where the conflict. I'm not an attorney. I don't understand what you guys understand. What I know is the DEA of Atlanta was aware that Dion Gatling and Suarez were in drug conversation. She's not listening. The last sentence there, Flannery has arranged for Suarez to provide cocaine in multi-kilogram quantities to Gatling through CS1. The only contact I had with Demetrius was, hey, buddy told me to get Cuff's number. And that's the full extent of his involvement. So we don't have, there's many other documents. If you're here to find Demetrius Flannery guilty of setting up his friend Dion Gatling or his former co-conspirator, I still don't know if that's there. The more I read this and think about it, Miss Collins had Mr. Flannery's life rights. What if she was facilitating drug deals with them for him? And Gatling, wow. So Gatling wanted to do a deal for a movie. Tammy was kind of getting threatened about not signing over life rights. She had Demetrius's life rights and power of attorney. So she can do a deal on her own and pay herself whatever. So she get $1 million deal, she could pay herself $800,000 as the executive producer. She's power of attorney. What if I have Demetrius's power of attorney? I'm competing with Dion Gatling to get a TV, movie deal, whatever. What if I put them both in a conspiracy and get them more time locked up? If Demetrius catches the case where he's already doing time, they're going to bury him deep in the hole. What if I do that? And now Cuffy is no competition, and I can sign off the rights to anyone who I want, and I don't even really have to be answerable to Demetrius. He can barely call me. I'm going to leave it right there. We have 40 minutes. That's a lot. There you go. So I still don't see a smoking gun that Demetrius knew, because here's the thing. I'm going to say this. If you're somebody and you want to set people up to get out of prison, right? Everybody is picking and choosing, right? Like, you're not going to trade your mother or your little brother, right? Or your son. Oh, put my son in prison instead of me. Put my best friend. Your drug dealer, Demetrius Flannery, knows many, 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 many people. Why would he have picked Cuffy Gatling to set up? Demetrius was good. He was famous in prison. He probably could have set up people that you would never associate with him. Why did it have to be Cuffy?